where it makes sense.
Well, why don't we sort of kick it off? And Christy, you can come off mute if you want. I can ask you to unmute because you can just, you're one of our 5 people now, so you can talk openly with us.
I have my kids here, so if it gets loud, I'll
Totally
mute
fine.
myself.
No, it's totally fine. So I guess if we, just even for the sake of the recording, the reason why we wanted to have an in-person meeting this year, oh, someone's joining, great. I'll wait for them to join.
I think it's Carly. I just told her to join.
Nice job. I'll wait for the audio to connect. Oh, thank you, Christine. I appreciate that. So the reason why we wanted to have a patient meeting this year is because we were going over the scientific goals. We were going over the scientific goals with Curtis in terms of where research needs to advance in order for our kiddos to actually see tangible benefits. Hi, Carly, is that you? And one of the things that we realized is that there's a lot of things in the pipeline of research that essentially require patients to begin to advocate either for the advancement of that action item. For example, Curtis can talk a little bit about newborn screening, or patients just need to essentially gather representation and present that representation to pharmaceutical companies and other groups to show them that an investment into PDE is backed by, patients who are willing to participate in discussions and potentially trials and at least scientific studies. And so we thought the best way to get people together thinking about those things would be an in-person meeting. Does that sound approximately right to everybody? Curtis, you guys can chime in.
Yeah, I would just emphasize that we've there's a lot of people, not just me, who are working on new treatments for PDE, and some of the work we've done and the papers we've published have also, we've gotten some interest in some pharmaceutical companies who also want to partner with us. And often the questions we get are, you guys as scientists are excited, but are the families excited? Do they want new treatments? Would they participate in new treatment trials? Would they want, can we get a better natural history from them? And so it just again emphasizes that nobody does this alone. Hopefully you don't feel alone. But we don't want to do this alone, but really it takes a lot of working together.
Yeah. And I think while it's nice that we get together on Zoom calls, and I know a lot of people's lives are really busy, I do think that over a day or two of, in-person meetings, we can really sort of hash out a number of objectives, get folks to start thinking about how they can, how we can start like actually moving those objectives forward. So as an example, people have babies. I have a puppy who wants to be let in. So I'll go on mute for a second. But as an example of one of those objectives, I guess, is newborn screening. So Curtis, if you could just casually cover the concept of like how science gets to a certain point, and then what would families, like what would we need to organize about ourselves in order to move some of these things forward? And then we can, we're all talking casual, so everybody feel free. So hi, Carly. Hi, Becky. Hi, Scott. Feel free to come off mute. So we're just having a conversation today. So feel free to chime in. I'm just gonna go grab the puppy.
Yeah. So hi, everyone. Again, I'm Curtis. If you met me before or don't remember who I am, I work here in Colorado. And one thing that we've been working hard on as a group of scientists is for newborn screening for PDE. Hi. If I gave a couple of like formal lectures on newborn screening for PDE this year in Europe, in California, in Boston, and coming up in Uruguay. So I actually have some slides with like data. If anybody wants to ask any questions, I can just pull some stuff up. But we started focusing on newborn screening for a couple of reasons. Three reasons. One is that there is an unfortunate number of children who presented with seizures, who didn't respond to seizure medications or anti-seizure medications, and unfortunately passed away from fatal seizure events, and nobody knew they had PDE. Nobody knew that those seizures could have been treated. A second reason we started doing this is that I met a lot of you. I met a lot of people who told me their stories about their kids who went on for days, weeks, months. One family who I met who went on for 9 years with never being able to figure out what was the cause of their child's seizures and really struggling to control them and having multiple hospitalizations. And then the third reason really is that we've shown that in some of our newer treatments, really the earlier you start treatment, the better a child does. And I think that's just true of all of medicine, right? That's not unique to PDE. You know, maybe you have a loved one with cancer, the same thing. The earlier you identify it, the better the outcomes are. And so for all of those reasons, we really started to think about doing newborn screening for PDE. But getting something approved for newborn screening is quite complex. There's a few different parts. And so actually we tried to summarize what those parts were and where PDE fell in the evidence for those parts in a paper in 2022, which put in the chat, and I can, if it's not available on the Cure PDE website, I can certainly send it and have it posted there. But there are several criteria for whether a condition should be undergo newborn screening. First, it has to be technically possible. You have to be able to identify this on a dry blood spot. So how newborn screening happens, as you probably know, in most developed countries, is that when a child is between 24 hours and 72 hours of life, we take a very small drop of blood, usually from their heel, although it can be from other things like a finger. And that dry blood spot sits in the hospital for 24 hours and gets really, really dry. And then it is put in, so you'll hear it called dried blood spot screening because we let it dry at room temperature for a day. And then we ship it, sometimes just in the US mail, sometimes in like a special courier to a lab to be able to try to identify disorders that are treatable. And so our group here in Colorado has worked on that technical feasibility for a long time. I think since 2016 or 15, we've been working on proving that this is a disorder we can identify in those dry blood spots. And around 2019, a group in Europe and the Netherlands started to work on the like technical side of dry blood spot screening as well. And we right away started to partner together. And in fact, those of us who are working on the technical side of newborn screening are all meeting on May 1st or the last day of April in Germany to sort of just share data and say, like, this is where we are on the technical side of newborn screening. We think that we can identify children at 1 day of life who have PDE. To be honest, the technical part is actually the easiest. Like, we have a lot of tools. We know what we're looking for. We can identify patients. The harder part is the process of getting a country to decide that PDE is the right condition to screen for. And so there has to be a lot of evidence that screening for a condition has more benefit than harm, And again, in that paper, we sort of walk through why we think that there is a lot of benefit to testing for this disorder. Some of it has to be that you have to clearly identify what the disorder is. So it can't be one of those things where a doctor defines PDE as one thing and another doctor defines it as another. There has to be a very clear treatment. That treatment has to have clear evidence that it makes a child's life better. So it can't be just to diagnose a child. It really has to be because we're treating the patient. And most of our work has really been focused on that. We've been trying to build evidence about whether treatment makes a difference in your kids' lives. And so if you've joined our PDE study, the International PDE Consortium study, that's the reason we've been doing it, is trying to figure out, do we make a difference? And then the biggest part is actually showing that parents of kids are advocating for newborn screening, that they wish that their child was diagnosed through this state-sponsored screening test. And not every parent thinks that. Hopefully everyone on this call does. But for some conditions, families have said that the treatment wasn't that helpful and that they wish they just never knew that their child had that condition, or at least that they had some time with their kid not knowing they had a genetic disorder. And that is usually for disorders that don't have a treatment. So let's imagine that there's a child who has a disorder that's going to happen at age 10 and they're going to die at age 11 no matter what you do. Some families said, I never would have wanted to know that at birth. I would have just wanted to enjoy those 10 years with my child, and then dealt with that very difficult year. And other families said, absolutely not. I would have wanted to know. I would have needed that 10 years to sort of think through what that means. Now, thankfully, that's not PDE at all, right? We all know that this is a very treatable condition. But what the committee who does newborn screening really wants to see is that families feel this is important, that this is integral to the care of PDE. And to apply for newborn screening, it is usually led or at least co-led by families. Families help with the petition, which I've also started to fill out this paperwork over the years. So it's not like I'd expect anybody to do it on their own. But in the United States, there is a special committee that hears the evidence and the family's opinion. And then if you make it through a specific line, they actually invite family representatives and scientific representatives to Washington, D.C., and to really discuss why the families think this is important, and then from the scientifics part, what our evidence is that this is helpful. And so it is possible to get a new condition added to newborn screening without both parties working together. I don't think a family could go and just say, we want this. We don't know if it's possible. We don't know if it's helpful. We want it. And it's impossible for a clinician or a scientist to go and say, like, I can do this, so you should add it to newborn screening. It is really a 50-50 partnership.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Curtis. Does anybody have any questions about sort of newborn screening as as a great, I guess, exemplar of how patient-led advocacy can move us forward? Does anybody, or you guys can just say hi. You don't have to have a question. There's not a lot of us here. I know that we've met Christy before. Carly, I think we met before, right? Let me see. Do I have to ask you to unmute maybe? Oops. Sorry about that. That was my bad. There we go. Hey.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been on here a couple times before. This is the first time I've spoken. I've talked to Christy often, and then I've spoke with Curtis on the phone a few times. My question for the newborn screening would be, if I've been back and forth thinking about having a second child. She's my first and only. So with the newborn screening, if I were to request it or whatever it may be, to get the genetic testing done early, is there anything to do in pregnancy for me that would help the outcome like after birth and not have like such a traumatic experience with seizures and being intubated and hospital visits and everything. Oh, I got
Yeah,
the bat.
I'd be happy to talk about what we recommend in a pregnancy in like a much bigger talk if we ever want to, or if that's part of the
Okay.
talks we want to have in the in-person meeting. But the short answer is yeah, if you have a child with PDE, there is a 25% chance that the next child would have
Right.
PDE. You can do one of two things. Some families elect to test that pregnancy to see if the child's affected, and others decide not to. If we don't know, we recommend that the pregnant mom takes paradoxine
Okay.
during the pregnancy. Paradoxine is actually commonly used in pregnancy to help with severe nausea. So it's actually like a
Right.
second effect, like it helps your nausea. It also does help ensure that no seizures happen. Some moms, I'd love to know if people experience this. They actually um, notice seizures in pregnancy. They feel like the baby's hiccuping.
When I
Not
look
every,
back on my pregnancy, I think that she didn't move. I struggle with anxiety too. So everybody that was around me when I had concerns, everybody was just kind of like, oh, like it's probably just you. Like, so now that I look back on it, she probably was. So
had some hiccuping.
yeah,
So
definitely.
we've shown that if you take paradoxine in pregnancy, that the fetus looks like they don't seize, and
Okay.
those kids actually never have a seizure. We do give the newborns like a slightly lower dose of B6. Don't know if they have PDE. And then we just try to do testing on day 1 of life. And then if they do have PDE, we raise that B6 dose a little bit. And if they don't, we stop it. So we do
Okay.
have some pregnancy recommendations. We've like written some specific guidelines because so like if your physician contacts me and them a paper and some guidelines that are very formal, but we could talk more about that at any time about why we do
Okay.
those things. They're helpful. How are
So
they helpful?
necessarily getting the genetic testing while pregnant is, I mean, it sounds like you could take the B6 just to be on the safe side if you know you have a chance, and then afterwards get the genetic testing day 1 and go
Yeah.
from there, kind of. Okay. Because it sounds kind of invasive for all the moms.
Yeah, and we can talk about some more non-invasive ways to do it too. Like,
Yeah.
if possible, there are some other ways. And then always happy to have those conversations with anyone, as well as talk to your doctor who, your doctors are all amazing, right? They all know your kids very well, but it's a chance, there's a very high likelihood that you know more about PDE than they do. And so it is always great for our team to talk to them. We're more than happy to talk to any of your physicians if they're open to it.
Awesome.
That's also one of the things that I had put on our list of things to talk about in the meeting, or later down the line, is how do we really get physicians as the parents, how do we even educate our own physicians, physicians, I guess like that even extends to OBGYNs, right? Because I guess we have OBGYNs, but in this case, it's like your OBGYN, right? Like you with this, so. Dr. Anu, I think maybe we haven't met. I don't know if you want to say hi.
I'm not sure how to mute myself again, so sorry.
I'll mute you if you want. I got you.
Okay.
Or Scott, I know that we had a little communication if you want to say hi, or Becky. Otherwise, we'll go into thinking about the meeting.
So she must recognize Curtis because as soon as he started talking, she was like looking around for him.
So, she was sleeping though, right? At first?
No.
Or she was just chilling? Oh, she was just feeling so.
She's just chilling. No, but you recognize Curtis, huh? She's like, where's my boyfriend?
I'm gonna pretend she does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna let yeah, you can, Scott, you can go ahead. You shouldn't even be muted, although I can't hear you for some reason, so maybe your speakers aren't working.
Hi, Scott. I think I saw your question on the website and I tried to answer it really shortly. But if you can unmute and ask it, if not, I'll assume you can't ask.
I guess you must be just typing, so how much should someone take? Yeah.
Yeah, so we tried to provide guidance based on age. So the amount of B6 you should take depends on your age. And so we publish this in the consensus guidelines that should be available to everyone. But again, if these are papers that you are interested in, I'm sure that they could be posted on the website. But the amount of B6 also depends on how your seizures are being controlled and a lot of other factors. Right now, we kind of give very wide ranges. So I think, Scott, you were asking about adults. So for adults, we recommend that adults take between 200 and 500 milligrams in a day. Most adults are on the lower side of that dose. But again, it really depends on what your EEG looks like, when's the last time you had a seizure, a little bit about what your diet is, like if you are naturally eating very low amounts of protein or lysine, you probably need a little less. And so those are the general guidelines. I think they're there for infants and then children and then adolescents and adults are the 4 categories, and the ranges are different per age. And we've talked a little bit about one of our goals for our upcoming clinical trial is to try to help make more personalized recommendations for B6, like getting a blood sample from an individual and helping their doctor figure out how much an individual actually needs. So instead of it being this range, we can sort of tailor it. But that's really more of a research endeavor than a clinical one.
Awesome. Thanks, Curtis.
So Scott's doctor wanted to go, so 200 milligrams in a day is pretty common for an adult. One of the questions that we all have is how often you should take it. I know patients who have missed a day of B6 and have had seizures, which makes us worried that that patient needs to take it more than once a day. And I have another patient who went 7 days without taking their B6 because they were a teenager and didn't believe that they really needed it. Like they didn't believe their parents that they needed this vitamin, and she actually went 7 days before she had a seizure. So I think how often you need it is very person to person dependent. But Scott, I do know adults that are taking 200 milligrams once a day.
Thanks, Curtis. Just to really segue this into the meeting, I'm going to share my screen, which is admittedly not a advanced version of event planning. So let's see if I can share. But I did want to ask if anybody, so I wanted to go through sort of what we were thinking. And get some feedback since we're all here. And let me know if you need me to unmute you, or can folks unmute themselves, or do I need to unmute everybody? Maybe I'll just ask everyone to unmute, and that way we have ask to unmute, ask to unmute. There we go. And that way people can just kind of give feedback. So we have thought about this one weekend on a Saturday, Sunday, and I know that people may not even be sure if they would be willing or able to come, but I do think we can see what people, what the community would like to think about it. So the first question is, would it be worth our while to go ahead and make it hybrid or just on site? Do you think folks would join in a hybrid fashion, or do we want to make it sort of, live only? I guess, if anybody has any thoughts.
I feel like if we make it live only, it would be more of like an intent for people to go.
Yeah. I kind of agree too. I think it's hard to like film a lot of those discussions, except for maybe like the big talks.
Right.
So maybe we would board. We were thinking of doing it like a half day Saturday, so people could come in on Saturday, half day Saturday, and then it's Sunday, so half day Sunday. Do you think more folks would come if it's a one day only, like all day Saturday, for example, or all day Sunday? What feels more manageable, do you think?
I feel like the half day and half day is good if kids are attending.
Okay,
And I feel like most people have to go in like anyways. Like I don't know how to actually like in Dallas. So I feel like most people will be there for the weekend anyway. Would be my guess.
okay. And then this is essentially what I thought about as our list of to-dos. Anastasia is already on deck to pick out a venue for us. Curtis is already on deck to see if we can connect with folks at the various institutions in Dallas to see if they can help us or contribute. Budget we'll figure out. We do have to think about if somebody wants to take over trying to send out invitations, or I can set up a registration site just for us to get an understanding of, you know, are we talking 5 people? Are we talking 10 people? Are folks going to be bringing their kids? So we have to think about, you know, childcare maybe. Are folks going to be coming alone and then maybe their partner stays at home with the kids? So if anybody wants to manage sending out invitations, also obviously the agenda. And I think for the agenda, we can also seek feedback maybe through the registration of what do people really want to do during this time. There's a few things that I think are really important for us to do, whether or not people want to do them, which is form some sort of, you know, main topic areas around which we advocate, maybe like clinical, you know, clinician education and newborn screening, or I don't really, you know, I don't know. But there are various other topics that I think we can be flexible around. I had started putting together a list of things that I thought maybe parents wanted to talk about, like educational challenges, behavioral support. We have legislative advocacy here. But if somebody wants to help me iron that out with, you know, with our community, that would be really helpful. Obviously, we need folks who can volunteer day of. Let me just check the chat really fast. Hybrid. Becky, you think hybrid would be better?
Yeah, because like for instance, I'm up in Montana.
Okay.
Like Texas is a bit of a shot for us.
How do you imagine that we do the hybrid? So is it sort of like, does that mean like that means we're all sort of like in one room together and that room is being kind of like telecast the whole time, kind of? Because I guess I'm thinking, and the way I was imagining it, and I don't know that it has to be this way, is that we'll have some like presentations, but then we'll have situations where parents just want to talk to each other, like do roundtables, for example, like a roundtable for older kids for like behavioral challenges or something, you know, or like maybe for, you know, for babies on like sleep patterns. And I guess I don't want folks to be left out, but I don't know that we could capture. Maybe we even just ask parents to turn on their own phones and sort of involve, you know, like involve their friends in a hybrid fashion. What do you think? If you have some thoughts, anybody, on how to make these roundtables hybrid, let me know and we can work on that. I know that we were talking to somebody who organizes meetings for organic aciduria with Kathy, and she did mention that to have like professional services record your meeting. I think she said was like 10 grand or something for their one meeting. So I don't know that we could manage professional level recordings, but I do think we could probably at least record some major presentations. Okay. So then on the to-dos, also volunteers, if you guys know anybody who maybe is in the Dallas area, or if maybe your grandparents, for example, would travel with you and help us even with things like childcare or, you know, whatever at the event, that would be fantastic. And if anybody needs assistance, you know, like getting those folks there, financially, let us know. We can think through, you know, funding those kinds of things, that is under our purview. And also, I think it's important for us to think about what we would really need in terms of food and catering. I think this might be venue dependent, so wherever we end up might have limitations on what we need for catering, but we do have to think about how to explain, you know, our dietary needs to wherever we end up. I know that's a big deal for folks. And then I was hoping that we could start reaching out to local businesses for support or organizations. If somebody has experience with that kind of marketing, that kind of outreach, and again, the local scientific support. And then, you know, obviously at the time of the meeting, we'll have to have somebody help us run all the sessions, and then gather feedback and write up a report, but those are sort of longer term. I am happy to really get any feedback from anybody on any of those concepts. Or if somebody wants to, you know, take over any of those to-dos from me, that would also be totally okay. So feel free to speak up.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, I know Christy and I were kind of talking too about like self fundraising for each family, or if there was something to do that way, because I mean, financially, just the tickets themselves would be a whole feat in itself, but that's something that I don't want to miss. So if there's any way that we can make it like I know people will pay on GoFundMe's and Facebook things for pretty much anything and everything. So I don't know if there's something we can set up to make it more like professional rather than me just being like, hey, I really want to go do this for my daughter.
Yeah.
Help me out.
Yeah, I really
Kind
like
of thing.
I like that. I guess I was initially just thinking of utilizing our funds from the foundation, but I do think that if we recruit community, because it's like, you're right, like instead of sending, you know, like maybe an aunt or an uncle will send $50 that will, you know,
Right.
cut off. And I think they would be happy to do it, right? Because if, you know, our communities have probably seen what it takes to feel so isolated in this. Okay, that's awesome. Do you mind, like, if you have any ideas besides GoFundMe? Or maybe
I was thinking like, can we somehow do like a virtual, like a walk, or obviously not like a run, like
Okay.
since kids
Yeah,
are little,
okay.
but like
It's a fundraiser.
something virtual that like like people can like,
Donate
they want
to.
to see your kid do like a 2K walk to like raise awareness, but then also like donate.
I like
Something like that.
Yeah, absolutely, we could do that. We have, I mean, I love our little logo that I imagined on the t-shirt anyway, so we can.
Yeah, like sell t-shirts or something, and then like half
Yeah.
the proceeds go, or however you have
Yeah.
to make money off of that. But that's smart too, for sure.
The only hang up there is that we're actually not, we're not licensed to receive money as the foundation, so we're only licensed to give out money. So we would have to do it, like every family would maybe have to sort of like buy the t-shirt, like, you know, just purchase regular t-shirts, not from us, but like we would provide the logo and the link and then sell them to your friends. So it's kind of becomes like, I'm not trying to make it seem like a MLM scheme of like, you know, but I just mean like we maybe couldn't sell them through the website. I'll have to talk to Anastasia to see if we could, but we can organize the event, and we could generate for sure the t-shirts. We could send them out for free, and then if you guys can get any money from it, then that is great for whatever, you know.
I think people would be willing to even donate without like t-shirts and stuff,
Okay.
just hearing everybody's stories because they sound so similar and they are very traumatic. And you know, not to like a sappy story, but that does kind of sell, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And
So,
summer is coming up. It would be nice maybe to do it sometime even in like June when it's not too hot everywhere.
yeah.
Harley, would you feel like maybe you and me and Christy can be a sort of in a team of trying to organize this? And I know that
Yeah, definitely.
who was it? Was it Jennifer that had organized a walk before? Christy, you were telling me. I know Christy started to tell me somebody had organized the walk before.
Yeah, I think Jennifer Sibbett, like here's her t-shirts. They did like a 5K to raise money for PDE research.
Okay. Do you, Carly and Christy, think that that's a major obstacle of why parents wouldn't come?
Yes.
With the
That is my only obstacle. The financial part of it is like the biggest feat. I mean, just for tickets for me, my husband and Finn would be well over $1,000. I know Christy's in Canada,
Mine's like 900 for one.
yeah,
Yeah.
for one ticket. So that in itself, just the traveling part is the biggest
Yeah.
issue.
So I was looking, because I don't know how many folks would come. I was looking at like gigantic Airbnbs that are like on a ranch basically, where we would stay together if like, but then we could like cover everyone's stay.
I feel like that would be super cool too, and that gives families a chance to really interact and like be around other families. This is the first time Christy is the first person I ever spoke to that had a child with PDE too. So I think you build lifelong connections, like trauma bonding with people pretty much. So I think that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Or I know sometimes you can block out like X amount of hotel rooms and they give you like a fixed rate or whatever.
I guess that's what I'm thinking, you know, that hotels and even like hotel venues really, you know, let me see if I could, there was like I'm gonna risk taking my screen here, let me just tell you what I was looking at, if I'll be able to pull it up. Because I guess like it would maybe decrease our, like, again, like it would be for a small, like a group that's probably, you know, like 20 to 30 people and not much bigger.
But do you think like out of all the people, I feel like I lack some mental skills on seeing like how many people actually interact and everything, but like what number of people do you think would travel?
Right.
So, I mean,
that's
if it's a
the
small
point.
intimate group, that might
Might be better, right?
be
Yeah.
better, yeah.
Yeah. So
And even too, everybody's got social media and phones and stuff like that. If everybody's taking videos and making little clips and stuff and showing the interaction between the families and posting those, then you might feel like you're there if you can't make it or you can't afford it.
So essentially like a really big house that has like, we would all just gather in the living room essentially, like instead of like a hotel meeting space, which again, like I guess if we cut down on the cost of reserving a hotel, I feel like that allows us to put the costs into helping families get there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to is being with the family. So even if it wasn't like this big production or like stages and food and stuff like that, I think that would be even.
That's good
I think that would be really cool. Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know because I think that helps us like prioritize our funding too. Because then like we don't need to spend 10 grand on telecasting it. We'd rather spend the 10 grand to get 10 other people
there. Right. I think that right there would like even if I could be paid for to go see Christy and sit and chat with her and her son and her family and her life, like that would be more meaningful to me than
So
a
then,
big production.
okay, perfect. So then I think that we would try to do maybe, maybe like, l- lodging,
Like a
stuff
retreat, like
in
like
there.
make it like a weekend retreat rather
Yeah.
than like a function, I guess.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Family weekend retreat, something like that.
I think that sounds a lot more intimate, and because
Okay.
I feel like we are a family because
Yeah.
we're the only people that really get it. Even the doctors and such don't. So
Okay.
having that tight knit with the families is really important, I think. To me,
And
I'm
I
sorry,
think
I'm
it's
speaking
like,
for everybody.
I think it would be so cool for like the kids to meet the kids. Like
Yeah,
I really want Jackson to meet Finley and like all the other
I agree.
be
I
like,
think that
hey,
would
I'm
be
not the only one.
so cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I also would probably bring my mom for a babysitter so she can
Okay.
help out with all the kids.
If you guys have folks like that would come and help, and because I know that there was one Airbnb I was looking at that basically has like a playground on, at the house, and it has like, a basement where we could ask volunteers to like watch the kids, so that we're not always like wrangling the kids and trying to, like,
Right.
there's like a little bit of, like a little bit of opportunity to actually talk as adults. And for the kids to meet each other. And I think for like the teenager kids, like I would love for Andre to like meet someone who's also a teenager,
And
Uh,
that's so cool for us to see too, that have the younger kids and like be able to meet these older teens that are able to talk to us and tell us how they feel and like how their day-to-day life is,
exactly.
because that makes us feel so hopeful in our kids' lives. So
Agreed.
that would be really cool to even have them there and talk and stuff. So
So maybe we even like totally reframe it in terms of like, we just say that, hey, we're booking, I don't know. I think the most I saw was like 15, like a place that had like 15 bedrooms. So it was like two houses that are like attached to each other or something. So like we're booking 15 rooms, like if 15 families, and we can help, we can donate this amount of money, or we can fundraise this amount of money. And then like, that's essentially the cap, right? Like, and other people, if they don't fit in those 15 rooms, then they can stay nearby, or I don't know, something like that. I guess like I want it to be like, we're not clicky in terms of like, oh, we picked our 5 best friends and like, we're all staying
right.
together. But that's probably going to be sufficient. I'll look at stuff and send it out, and post and see what folks think. Which I guess gets me thinking too, how do we get feedback on this? Should we just send out an email from our like Cure PDE and then have folks reply, or should we post it on Facebook, or like how
I
do
feel Facebook feels less scary to respond, if
Okay.
that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
it feels like less I don't know.
yeah, like
do
like authoritative, like you're not sending an
yeah,
reply.
like, hey, come hang out with us rather than be like, hey, come attend, I
Gotcha.
guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll see if I can, I'm sure Facebook has even like polling options, right? So if
Yeah,
I
that's what I was literally thinking, do a poll to
Perfect.
be like, would you
Okay.
be able to or not? Or maybe even say in person, or would you be able to attend
Okay.
via social media?
Yeah, okay, that's a really great idea. I will do that. And then I'll ask for you guys and then Curtis and Christy to also socialize that around so that people see those polls. Okay, I like that. I feel like that gives me a good starting point to look for something that feels a little more homey. And to present that through Facebook and see what people want to essentially like thumbs up or thumbs down.
Yeah.
Okay.
And get like at least a little bit of a head count to see if something like the 15 bedrooms would be an option.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. I like that. Well, I feel like that gives me my marching orders. Is there anything? And then Becky and Chrissy, let's also start somehow tracking this GoFundMe situation. I think we should contact Jennifer and see if she wants to teach us all her lessons learned from doing the run. So that might come as an email from me and just adding Jennifer in, because she was really quick about responding last time. But I can also reach out to you through Facebook to let you know how the email went. Okay, so are those the two main things to get through essentially? Anybody else have anything to contribute?
I don't think so. My biggest concern was definitely the cost. I mean, I would have gone in debt to get there because I think it's very important to make those relationships, especially this early on in our journey and stuff. So I think that was
Well,
my
that's
biggest
definitely not
concern.
something that, yeah, that's definitely not something that we want to see happen. I think we can definitely find a way around that. So, okay, that's good for me to know what people are, what's on people's minds. So we can do a Google poll too. Yeah, okay. All right, guys. Well, thank you for your feedback. I think that really helps me put this into perspective. So that was the whole goal. Thanks, Curtis and Christy. Any last minute thoughts from anybody?
No, I just appreciate you guys doing this all the time. It's so
Oh,
nice to have this to look forward to and get to chat with all you guys.
Oh, that's really nice to say.
I know you guys have put in so much time, and I'm happy to help whatever, but I'm not very good at thinking what to do ahead.
I think
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Give
I'm
yourself
gonna
some
send you guys
credit.
to like, I'm gonna send to you guys to like blast it out because I think I don't have the reach that you guys do. So if I put out the polls and stuff, maybe you guys can help me like reach more people to answer the polls, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Hey, Jackson.
all right, kiddos, thanks for everybody bringing their sweet little ones. That makes me really happy. Yes, Scott. So Scott, Curtis can talk to your doctor about your condition. Yeah, so I have your email, and Curtis can email you if you need someone to talk to your doctor. Right, Curtis? I'm not overstepping my boundary.
No, I'm more than happy to talk to anybody's physician. Scott, if you don't have my email address, I think I put it in
Yeah,
my response to your question on the website. But my email, I hope everyone has seen it somewhere. Happy to send it to everyone again.
the doctor doesn't need to do emails, but Curtis can call your doctor. Yeah, Curtis can just talk to your doctor like by phone.
Yeah, I think the helpful thing is, Scott, ask if I'd love to hear where you are, who your physician is. Maybe I know them. Make sure your physician is open to talking to someone else. But Scott, if you want to give me a call or email me first too, that's fine too.
Hey, Scott, can you give us your phone number? And then maybe that's the easiest way for us to reach you because it sounds like the emails haven't been very useful. Can you type in your phone number? Curtis, you got that? All right, I'll try to save all of this. Okay, very good. I'll make sure that I connect both of you. Was that enough time, Scott, for you to write down the number? Because I'm going to end the meeting. I think she said Montana. Did you say Montana, Carly? You're in Montana?
Oh, I'm in North Carolina.
Oh, you're in North
I
Carolina.
think
Oh,
Becky's in Montana.
oh, Becky's in Montana. Okay. Hi, everybody. Have an awesome day. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. Talk later.
Thank you guys.